But the thing is, South Africa didn't wait to actually find out why the recall happened. Word from them is they describe that step as, in their words, quote, unfortunate and regrettable. So does it mean that they've already assumed that this recall is for protest, not for consultation?
You see, when the statement is made in diplomacy, you try to nip in the bud the deterioration of the relationship. Now, even though the South African government knew that, look, is for simple consultation, it is in their own interest to take already the worst scenario and try to prevent it by saying it is most unfortunate. Alright, so in this case, it is to let the government of Nigeria know that we in South Africa were not concerned and that you shouldn't go to this particular extent. So it is an invitation to say, please review your stand on this position.
When you go a step ahead, because with some of the papers they haven't couched it quite like that. They've said South Africa taunts Nigeria over recall of envoy, and here they are also talking about, Chibok girls, when people died in your country, or the synagogue church collapsed. We didn't recall ambassador. We did not blame the Nigerian government, and you have all these references. Do you think that it should have gone to that length, or do you think that it begins to get a little belligerent by making references to such instances, for instance?
You see, I don't know why people try to compare two things that do not have anything common. Why will anybody look at the Chibok girls, the history of synagogue? They are not at all the same thing. You see, when you talk about xenophobia in South Africa, observers, analysts often forget what has characterized xenophobia in South Africa. The first characteristic is the factor of the recidivist measure. It is always recurring. How many of the synagogue something do you have? It's accidental. It is not deliberate. As a sort of structural defects. It's not man-made. It's not that we have a policeman who arrested a Nigerian and gave him, merciless beating. Alright. It's not the same thing at all. The critical point to also note when we talk about xenophobia is not simply hatred for the foreigners, distraught. The issue is that when we talk about xenophobia, we are talking about generality of foreigners. But the moment you come down to Afrophobia, we are not talking about hatred for the African people. The same black people that they are in South Africa, especially the black population. More specifically, there is also what we can call Nigerianophobia. That is, we not target the Nigerians. And this is the issue. Who is targeting South Africans in Nigeria? Who is killing South Africans in Nigeria? Who is against any South African people?
Which is where the conversation seems to be going, because if you say that your first words about it being regrettable and it being unfortunate, is telling the Nigerian government, to review that is an indirect way of saying, please kindly review if this is a recall in protest. But when you go a step further to make references to, about a synagogue church and citizens that were missing, 200 girls that have not been got back almost a year after, and the state in which, the corpses of the South Africans who were taken back home were brought in, the fact that they couldn't be viewed and how many days it took before, these bodies finally came back home. Are we not overreaching? I mean, isn't that what it begins to come down to? The Nigerian government will have to respond and say, why are you comparing apples with oranges? And how are these two things related? And before you know what's happening, it could degenerate further, couldn't it?
I don't have qualms with your observation. Quite right. And you cannot be more correct. That's the point I'm making. You see, at this juncture, if the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs, Obanikoro, had preferred to use the word invitation, is to take the issue out of diplomatic controversy. That's what he has simply done. But the theorists, the scholars, the analysts will normally say yes, whether you call it invitation or not, it's a recall.
And does this send their private message?
It does to an extent, until you have the full details.
That's why we've seen this reaction already from South Africa.
Precisely. That is precisely why the South Africans are trying to prevent further deterioration by regretting, by saying, well, look.
What I deduce from your analysis now, it would seem as if it's not xenophobic, this whole action. It would seem as if, it's a direct, because we haven't actually seen anyone who's non-African being hit by the South Africans there. Basically, they're almost all Africans, people of African descent that have been attacked in South Africa. So it would seem as if, is the Afrophobia that we're dealing with at the moment. But if you look at it, this is not the first time this has reared its head. In a situation whereby we have a recurrence of such actions by a people, what can a country do? Because you really can't be going back and forth like a yo-yo every time that people get on the street, attack your national, kill them, close their businesses, and after a while we have a law and it rears its head. If you were a South African national and you were in their foreign think tank, what can you do to avert or to speak to others that will be badly hit by this?
The answer cannot be far-fetched. It is very simple. You see, probably you should not look at it as xenophobic in character. You need to go back to the causal factors. What is the problem? Why is xenophobia recidivist? If it is recurring from time to time, almost periodically, this year 2015, there were xenophobic attacks in Soweto in January 2015. This is the second one. And it's not happening just in one area. It is always spreading. Please, nothing can be more xenophobic than this. Why it is like that? If you're asking for recommendation, if you're asking for solution, we must address the root cause. First of all, in South Africa, most people do not know and are unable to interpret the history of apartheid. They do not know much. It is not simply Afrophobia. I said Nigerianophobia. They normally target Nigerians for various reasons. But the central explanation is that while the people of Nigeria on this side are talking about Nigeria's rules, what we have done in the past, most South Africans do not know and therefore are unable to acknowledge what the Nigerian people have been able to do. For a simple reason. Please, in 2004 and 5, Nigeria's foreign minister by then, Ambassador Oluwemi Adeliji, made this murder with Dlamini Zuma when she was foreign minister. now chairperson of the African Union Commission. This matter was raised in an informal setting. And the explanation given was that there is a clear-cut distinction between the domestic wing of African National Congress and the external, the international wing of the ANC. It is the ANC International that knows about all that transpired in terms of international assistance to the anti-apartheid struggle. Those that are within South Africa did not know and do not know and are not likely to know unless the people are sufficiently educated. Please, in South Africa, who writes about Nigeria's contribution in their history books, in their educational books? Not a single mention. They don't mention. Even when Nelson Mandela died, and Nigeria sent a powerful delegation to South Africa, was Nigeria recognized? Did they mention anything?